themselves, what can it be except demonic?
Exactly. All of what we are living is clearly demonic. It is a well-aimed attack of the powers of darkness, of the Kabbalistic, Sionistic forces. These things, of course, are not conspiracy theories. There is historical evidence that shows, and St. Paisios the Athonite was saying this as well, that for 250 years now, the Sionistic attempt has been working systematically in order to strike at the church. St. Porphyrios also used to say that the church's worst enemies are the Masons, who are attacking the church from the inside. They have unfortunately infiltrated into the church as well. And the holy hierarch Augustine Cantiotis of blessed memory used to say that there are some hierarchs who become hierarchs after they have previously made a prostration in the lodge. And he would imply that there are not few, that there are many. He says, if they do not make a prostration in the lodge, they do not become hierarchs. Of course, we cannot say that all hierarchs are such. No. But unfortunately, there are some such even in the hierarchy. Consequently, under no circumstances do we catch bacteria, even while we are in the temple, since, as we said, the temple wholly becomes a furnace of divine grace, a furnace of divine light. And in there, everyone is sanctified. Of course, we have St. Paul's witness, who tells us that if you commune unworthily, you can certainly become sick, and you can even die. Certainly. It's clear. Yes, St. Paul, yes. These people are themselves to blame. It's not a matter of mechanics, that is, namely, that they became ill because they did not take some protective measures. Even if they took protective measures, they'd still become infected, and not only by the coronavirus, but as St. Paul says, they shall become seriously ill and they shall die, because the penance is spiritual. What we must understand is that all these things that the scientists are telling us today, and unfortunately our politicians are telling us, believe the scientists. And unfortunately even some hierarchs are saying, we must believe the scientists. All these things are valid for now, and again, not for all the scientists. Science never says, I'm teaching you the truth. Science says, I'm searching for the truth. And so far, on the basis of the available data, I say this. Again, I repeat, it is not accepted by all. The only truth, however, is that which is spoken by Christ, and which the church is preaching. The church never says, I'm searching for the truth. Rather, Christ himself tells us, I am the truth. Truth is a person. It is the truth himself. It is Christ. There's no doubting there. Christ tells us, I am the life, I am the light. So there is no chance that he who comes and communes of the light and the life will receive death or transmit death to another person.
What would you say, Yero, to the following? Some say, yes, all that you are saying is the exactitude, but now by economia we have to make concessions. Some say that we should not scandalize the non-Orthodox. Others say that we must make economias for those weak in faith. Is that what we are doing, economia, or is it a violation?
This is not economia. It is a violation. With these so-called economias, we are opening the door to the evil one. This is also known as secularization of the church. In other words, we are trying to attract the people into the church by secularizing, worldifying the church, while we should be doing the opposite, namely churchifying the world. We should not bring the worldly criteria and worldly methodology supposedly for missionary purposes. Instead, we should put into the people the ecclesiastical criteria. We should inspire people to think in an ecclesiastical manner, in a right manner.
So this dispensation comes from the divine dispensation, which is the incarnation. So economia is the best thing. Economia bears fruits of holiness. If we bar the people from Holy Communion, what sort of economia are we speaking of? We are speaking of death.
Yeah, we are speaking of spiritual suicide. Spiritual suicide, which is unfortunately committed with the blessing of some hierarchs who close down the churches, we would say, in a completely anti-evangelical way. Some hierarchs forbade and even forbid divine liturgy. There are instances of hierarchs who forbid priests from serving at all.
Can a hierarch do that? Does he have a right?
He does not have a right, because it goes against the holy canons, according to which, as we mentioned earlier, the priest ought to serve at least every Sunday. There's also the canon saying that if he does not liturgize for 3 Sundays, he is defrocked. What would we say to those who claim that we are doing all these things out of love? so that the elderly or the weak may not fall ill, and so that the sickness may not be prolonged or spread. All these are precisely expressing the spirit of the world, which we mentioned earlier, that we trust in science and not in God. Holy Fathers tell us that there are no natural laws. This started from the moment when Europe became atheist. Scientists such as Newton and others who spoke about natural laws were also entangled in occultism and magic, and Kabbalah and Hermeticism and in alchemy, which is again magic. Scientists that were dominant in Europe, who unfortunately have dominated and are still dominated in the universities to our own day, are connected with Masonry, which is connected with Kabbalah, with occultism, in other words, with magic. Today, in a completely racist way, among scientists, the dogma has been imposed that if anyone speaks about faith, about a miracle, he's automatically unscientific. Why? Up until the 18th century, scientists were faithful. This is a kind of racism, a dictatorship that has been imposed today by the Zionistes and the Kabbalists in the universities. And as a result, scientists do not dare to speak of faith in God. We have seen, for example, a well-known, distinguished doctor who spoke about Holy Communion and how much she was attacked.
Down in Athens, you mean?
Yes, in Athens, by the so-called scientific community.
What was her name?
Kyriamarelou. She is qualified on the subject of infections, which is what we are supposedly facing, since all of this, as it seems, is a great deception. And every day we learn something more about this deception, the so-called coronavirus, or fool's virus, as some call it here in Greek, in the Greek-speaking world, since it turns out that those said to be its victims are not victims of the coronavirus at all. Already in Italy, in the parliament, a congressman officially came and said, based on the data of the National Health Institute, that of the 25,000 registered victims, deaths that is, of the coronavirus, the real victims of the coronavirus were 925 to be exact, if I remember correctly. That is, that 96.3% did not die of the coronavirus.
They died of other causes?
Of other causes, of underlying illnesses, for other reasons, and it was attributed to the coronavirus. On a daily basis, I personally hear of cases from my spiritual children who tell me how they were pressured by various people in the hospitals to register that the death was due to the coronavirus. They were promised various rewards, they would have a funeral paid for it, etc.
Here in Greece, too, the man in charge, Chiodras, and he admitted it.
He himself admitted that we were attributing everything to the virus. That is, both the deaths of the coronavirus and the deaths with the coronavirus. In other words, those who also had other sicknesses. A man has cancer, and because he also tested positive for the virus, they say he died of the coronavirus. Is it possible? The man is dying of cancer, and they register that he died of the coronavirus. This is a fraud. I wonder how these people are still standing in the government and are still keeping their post, how the people are not rising up and protesting for all of this entire fraud. It has been proven that the same fraud is being done in America. In fact, we saw some videos where they're using dolls, literally dolls, intubated in order to tell us that these are victims of the coronavirus. 1,000,001 videos have come out, like those in Italy, where the military trucks were supposedly carrying the dead, which in fact was a video from 2013 from a shipwreck that had happened back then. Those journalists presented it to us in a heartbreaking manner, that these were the victims of the coronavirus. In other words, it's a huge fraud staged by the Kabbalists and the Zionists and the media, which again are theirs. It's a common secret that they were all funded by the globalists, which is why they all say the same things worldwide.
Τους παγκοσμιοποιητές, γι' αυτό και λένε όλοι τα ίδια πράγματα παγκοσμίως.
Yeronda, let's take a break. We should continue in a bit. We'll come back. And when we come back, I would like us to talk about the faith, what the faithful should do. Gradually, all of us are realizing that something is wrong. These are not as things are presented. There's very many questions, but mainly we are troubled by the stance of those inside the church, because there it is especially painful. What can we do? What stance should we keep on the basis of the patristic tradition and the holy canons? What should we do? We'll continue in a bit with the next section.